right, well, good morning, everyone. I am proud here this morning to be joined by several members of the Board of Aldermen, as well as the President of the Board, her office, and our publicly owned water division to talk about the serious crisis that our water infrastructure is now in, as well as the actions we're going to take to address the crisis head on, protecting the crucial resource that our water infrastructure is and the benefit it is to the city of St. Louis. St. Louisans are rightfully tired of the much too frequent water main breaks that disrupt our lives, require costly emergency repairs, and, worst of all, cause property damage and result in boil order advisories. Decades of deferred maintenance mean that we as a city now waste millions of gallons of water a day to lower residents' quality of life. We have to do better. And today we're here to talk about how we're going to do that. Recently, my office and the Board of Aldermen reappropriated more than $6 million in unspent ARPA funds to the Water Division. That was a first step. And the proposed RAM settlement bill that is now working its way through the Board of Aldermen would allocate another $30 million to support funding the immediate needs of the Water Department. The need is so dire that this kind of large and quick investment is necessary to ensure that the Water Division can even make it through this year without disruption. This, of course, is nowhere near enough to address the decades of deferred maintenance that have left our Water Division with over $700 million of critical investment needs. Even if we spent every single dollar of our RAM settlement funds, we wouldn't be able to meet half of the need of our water department. That's why we have to come up with a sustainable solution that ensures the Water Division will generate the revenue needed to cover the actual cost of providing safe and, of course, great tasting water to St. Louisans. That's why following a water rate sufficiency study, the Water Division has brought forward a proposed water rate increase for St. Louis customers, whether those are residents, businesses, or golf courses, between now and 2032. This will meaningfully increase the Water Division's revenue over time, while also ensuring that our nation's best tasting water remains significantly less expensive than what residents in our neighboring counties are paying and depend on with private water companies. No elected official likes to stand before our constituencies and announce rate increases. But we're being honest here, and that's part of the reason why we are in the predicament that we are in today. For far too long, we have been afraid as leaders to make the tough but right decision to bring our water rates to the level that is sustainable, which has brought us to where we are today. And that remains a great deal. Making a sustainable water department means a great deal to our residents and our water customers. It's important and it's critical. So I'm proud to stand with this group today as we take a serious step towards right-sizing our water rates to protect our public water utility to the benefit of St. Louisans for generations to come. This is what it looks like to make tough decisions and to stand by them. I want to thank our Water Commissioner, Director Patel, and the entire Water Division for their hard work they put in every single day, and every single night to make sure that our water is safe and flowing despite a lack of investment in the past, and for putting forward what they need to keep our water infrastructure intact and publicly owned. I want to thank the President of the Board, her office, and along with every member of the Board of Aldermen, and especially Alderman Browning, for carrying this important bill here today. I also want to thank the Collector of Revenue who collects our water fees and the Comptroller, who have both been strong partners in these conversations and as this work as we seek to bring sustainable investment to our water infrastructure. And now I'd like to turn it over to Alderman Browning, who is the primary sponsor of the legislation. Alderman Browning?
Thank you, Mayor. So this morning I'm going to be introducing a bill to raise the water rates in the city. We're in a situation where our rates have not been keeping up with the cost of delivering safe, clean drinking water, much less the maintenance of our infrastructure that is aging and reaching a breaking point. We have had a record number of breaks recently, as I don't really need to tell the residents and businesses of our city. They've been experiencing them themselves. This is a generational investment to make sure that we're saving our municipally owned water system. That means that we, the taxpayers, the ratepayers, own this system. Unlike our other utilities, this belongs to us, which means that every dollar we pay goes right back into that system, making it better so that it can continue to deliver safe, clean drinking water for generations to come. This is a wonderful step forward that should set the Water Division on the path to financial solvency well into the future. We took a close look at this. We did a rate sufficiency study to make sure we're getting this right. And we're going to walk forward confidently, knowing that we're doing the best thing we can for St. Louisans, whether they're residents, businesses, visitors, or anyone who takes part of our city and drinks our clean water. With that, I will turn it over to Alderwoman Schweitzer, who's been a long champion for our Water Division.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. If you're listening today, I'm sure you're wondering about consumer protections. You're thinking about other bills you're paying. You're thinking about the cost of living today. First and foremost, the most important thing that the city of St. Louis can do to protect consumers of our drinking water is to keep it a publicly owned utility. That is the most important thing that we can do. That means the people of St. Louis own this resource, and every dollar invested in it is invested in the people of St. Louis and our future as a city. I think about my son and the future he will have in St. Louis, and the number one resource he needs is drinking water. I don't think we could hit that home any stronger. I think you should also be looking at the city to set a rate that's affordable for everyone so that everyone can pay their water bills with dignity and pride in our water system. You should be looking at making sure that the city of St. Louis is charging people for water in a fair manner. So that's looking at the rate structure as well. There's a cost of service study coming next, and that will possibly change the rates that we're seeing today in the future to make them even more fair for the people who own this drinking water source. And this not source, obviously, we don't own the river, and we should think about that and think about how our actions affect the river and our use of that amazing resource that we have. So I really appreciate the investments that have been made into water from other places besides the rates, thinking about the American Rescue Plan Act funds. That's an important piece of this. I hope that there's ability to find more if there is more reallocation coming, which I think we all know there is. And I'd also like to make sure that the RAMS funds invested in this resource is both helping with the capital improvement projects and making sure that the city can borrow money against that to make it last as long as possible. And we look at increasing the amount for RAMS. And I know, there's conversations still happening, so pay attention. So as consumers, I hope you hold us accountable to making this something that you can not only afford to pay, but also that you are confident in your city that it's going to be a resource that's here for generations, if not hundreds of years, like the age of some of our infrastructure, to come. So thank you for your time today. I believe I'm passing it over to the President's office.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Oh, wonderful. All right, Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you. I want to thank Madam Mayor and the President's Office and my colleagues at the Board of Aldermen. We're going to say a lot of the same things, but as you know, water is life. And as my colleagues have mentioned, having this investing in this public asset and making sure that it stays ours, especially when we're seeing climate change and that water will be and will continue to be one of the most valuable resources, makes it all that more important that we keep it in the hands of the people. As you heard, it's not an easy decision or necessarily a popular decision for politicians to raise rates, but we are here because of decisions that have been deferred, and these are necessary. And so I think none of us at the board, we all take this very seriously, and it's not something easy to do, but as you've heard, it is critical, it is necessary for us, and it's necessary for us to keep one of our most important assets in the hands of the city and its people. And with that, I will hand it over to the President's office.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Garmendi. I'm Policy Director to President Green. I'm here on her behalf. First, we want to commend the leadership of Mayor Spencer and Alderman Browning and all the members of the board that are up here today for bringing this legislation forward. This investment will make our region richer. We'll be more resilient to changing climate. We'll be more welcoming to big business that need water. and we'll be more thoughtful of the water engineers and technicians that keep this leaky boat afloat, and honoring their expertise and advice to invest in our water system. The Water Division's been asked to do too much, to do more with less for too long. And President Green stands at the ready, and her office, to support this legislation. It's thoughtful and considerate legislation, and many of the alders have already touched on some of the major points about it. As others have noted, raising rates is not a popular political position, and perhaps why it hasn't been done to the extent it should have in the past. But this Board of Aldermen is different, as you can see behind me. And our residents are perhaps some of the most conscious and concerned in the nation about water infrastructure. We've heard over and over again in resident surveys how much they care about this issue, and this legislation is a more complete answer to that call. At the same time, the RAMS dollars supported by the leaders here will also go towards kickstarting some of the work and absorbing some of the pain for ratepayers. Thank you. Alderman Cohn, did you want to make words?
So I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and the mayor. This is an important topic for us to discuss down here at the Board of Aldermen. As acting president of the Board of Aldermen, I'm happy to work with my colleagues to shepherd this through the legislative process. I think that it's absolutely critical that we move this legislation forward. As it's been mentioned before, this is an item that's been kicked down the road a little too far. And so we're at a really critical period in time and inflection point where we need to make these investments in our infrastructure. And I'm happy that the mayor's office and Director Patel and others have been working so diligently to get this to the place that it is today, being introduced at the Board of Aldermen, and I look forward to working with my colleagues. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. I want to start out by thanking all of the leadership behind me, in supporting the Water Division and its goals. We really are at a time when a strategic plan is coming together and, everything is in step, falling in place. I want to start out by saying that access to clean, reliable drinking water is, essential. It's not a luxury. Everybody needs it for daily life, and it's essential for a sustainable, thriving city. Nobody wants to hear the cost of water, service is going up, but I think what you've heard from the leadership behind us today is that, this is too important for inaction to continue, kicking the can down the road, and this is the group of people that is going to address that problem head on. We know also that as the cost of living is climbing for families every day in the city of St. Louis and our citizens, there is a real burden here. We aim to address that with this bill, this water rate increase as well. We know that senior citizens, our vulnerable population, are the ones that we are seeking to protect here. For decades, St. Louis has had to face tough financial decisions, and that includes the Water Division. Years and years of making those choices, deferring action, has brought us to this point today, and I think that we were reactive. Today we are being proactive. I mentioned the planning, the work that's been going on. This increase will support that work for decades to come. We will work that plan that we've been working on. The capital renewals that are needed, it was mentioned over $700 million. The water master plan that we're doing is taking a look at, comprehensively addressing that with condition assessments at the treatment plants, condition assessments of the water mains to address the most challenging mains that are breaking most frequently, causing interruptions to daily life for our citizens. Because we cannot let this happen at the expense of our neighbors who are struggling to pay, we have an unprecedented action in this board bill to introduce a permanent affordability rate. This will address those who are most vulnerable, due to income, due to fixed incomes and age, due to the impacts of natural disasters such as the tornado that tore through North St. Louis, and people are still rebuilding to that day. We need to support those people. This affordability rate will address that by having a subsidy for our citizens who are struggling to still pay a water rate, but one that they can afford. The work that we're doing today will serve the city of St. Louis for generations to come. You've heard that this is really an investment into us. This is an investment into our children, and it is necessary. We're not just fixing pipes, we're building a reliable future from the bottom up, underneath the streets and the ground of St. Louis, so that we can sustain this water utility, this service, for our children, our children's children. Thank you.
And with that, we'll take some questions.
Mayor, is the city responsible for damages for water main breaks? I've been doing the story about Youth and Family Center. They got hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage, and they say they yet have gotten any help from the city.
Okay.
What is that situation like?
I'm not going to be able to speak on the specific water main breaks at this time. What we're here to talk about today is making investments to prevent those types of water main breaks moving forward. The specifics of that one is something that is very specific to that situation, and I'm not able to speak on that today.
Generally,
Say
do
a little bit
citizens,
more about this affordability rate that is in this study, and will other customers then end up having to pay more to help with that rate or to help with that subsidy?
Yes, there are different rates for different rate users, depending on the volume of water. And so one of the questions, Rachel, we've gotten, for example, is related to data centers. And is this related to some of that? Data centers are known to be large water users. And absolutely not. We are unique in that we're a publicly owned utility. So none of the money that goes into our water department, whether that's through ARPA, RAMs, or ratepayers, goes to investors. And that's a great thing for us. We are not an investor-owned or a utility. And so all the money that goes into our water department stays in our water department. And if we had a big user like a data center, that would actually be very, very helpful in taking on some of the cost of these infrastructure needs that our water department has. But if you want to get into the specifics of the rates, I'll let Director Patel talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, the affordability rate, again, it's designed to have criteria such as income, such as age, and then, impacts from natural disasters. And so that will come, out of our budget. But one of the things we're looking at is, phasing out subsidies for other large users in the system, addressing new users of the system who have not paid into it with higher rates. Certainly data centers fall into that group, and this legislation does cover that, allow the Water Division to enter into specific agreements with large users that are new connections to the utility, to the water mains and the system that everyone else has paid into. Initially, I mentioned solvency, making sure that what is coming in is covering the ongoing daily costs to operate the division and provide that service. That's one of the buckets we're aiming to address. Stability in the water rates. People need to know what is happening and when it will be happening so they can plan for it. We will build back up a reserve fund and a rate stabilization fund so there's predictability into the water rates moving into the future. We don't have to spike it, due to new costs that come in. And then lastly, the aging infrastructure, finally addressing this proactively, not reactively. All of those things were built into the scope of work for the rate sufficiency study. All of those things are in this plan, in this bill, to address those challenges, over time and in a way that people can absorb. But early on, there will be some larger increases, 18% increases, followed by smaller increases of 6% and 5% in the later years.
Mayor, you described this rate increase as sustainable, but we just saw the city 3 years ago increase rates. Can you guarantee that with this rate increase, we won't be back here in a few more years doing it again?
Yeah, I can't make those guarantees. I think it'd be irresponsible at this point to try to make those kinds of promises. But I will say that that rate increase that we implemented 3 years ago was not done with this level of rate study, its rate sufficiency study, and the work that the Water Division has done leading up to this rate increase. And you may remember at that time, many of us were aware that that rate increase was not going to be sufficient. We just knew that because the research, the work going into it was not done to the level that brought that level of confidence here. So I am very confident that this will better address those needs, and we have very much better prepared for what the long-term investment looks like, and this is getting us closer to that mark.
Mayor, how much?
meets at 10, so we can take a few more questions.
I can take more, but if you have questions for the board, they do have to start at 10 a.m., so I just want to preface that with that. I mean, I can take questions, but we do need to wrap up at 10 today.
Alderman Cone is the one who's the other person who has been among this group down here the longest. Is it that the board is different in terms of wanting to address this issue, or is it that the need is so dire that you don't have a choice?
So I think it's a little bit of both, and I think the mayor just touched on that. Even when we had the discussions previously around increasing rates, there was a general sense by colleagues that it was not going to be enough to address the long-term needs of the system. And so I think right now we're at a place where we have a study that's actually providing us data that we need to make these decisions and these choices. And I think that that's always helpful to drive these types of conversations. And so I think it's a combination of both, but ultimately I think now we have data behind us that supports what these rate increases will look like.
This could be for any member of the board. What do you say to your constituents who may not qualify for that affordability rate, but then say, I can't afford this?
You're welcome to take it, or I can.
I think the affordability rate, if you think about this, these are 18% increases in the first 6 months, and then another 18% increase in the next 6 months, followed by much smaller increases. This is a 50% discount on the rate. So if they're able to afford it now, they should be able to afford it under this affordability rate. But going forward, I also know the Water Division works with people to put them on payment plans, to get them to a place where they can keep the water on. I can personally attest to this. I've had issues in my ward where someone wasn't paying their bill, the water got shut off, they called me for help. I was on the phone with Director Patel immediately. He was assigning someone to it, and we had it turned back on within hours and put them on a payment plan to move going forward. So I want to emphasize this really heavily. We're not looking to deprive anyone of water. We want to make sure that everyone continues to get safe, clean drinking water now and far into the future.
Could you describe?
I'll also just add to that, as Alderwoman Schweitzer pointed out, the affordability, centering around consumers is incredibly important here. We've been working with consumer organizations and working with Director Patel to really create that affordability rate piece that recognizes that. And as Alderwoman Schweitzer pointed out, this is really a measure that is protecting the public component of our water department. The worst thing that could happen is us to fail to have a sustainable water department and the department go belly up, which we would actually do this year if we don't take very, very drastic measures here. So this is an important step to protect, in particular, the most vulnerable water users, to ensure that we have a water department they can rely on. When you look at the surrounding communities that have investor-owned water departments, those rates are significantly higher than even what we're proposing here with these rate increases. And Elliot, I'll come back to you, but I just want to see if there's anybody else that has a question.
The earliest residents can see the increases start?
This is July 1st. Thank you, Director Patel. Yeah, and of course, this is incumbent upon the Board of Aldermen getting this legislation through, but we feel confident, having had so many conversations with the aldermen over the last year. Everybody recognizes this is extremely unfortunate, but also very necessary.
Could you give the details?
Anybody else? I will come back to you, just somebody who hasn't asked a question
I
yet.
have an unrelated question on water about the census, so if you want.
Okay.
Could you give us some details of the program that's in place to help people pay their water bills? In other words, low-income folks who can't afford it. I know you
We did have a program, particular with the ARPA
sure.
funds.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. The temporary assistance program that we have now, funded by those ARPA funds, that will sunset, that will run out. One of the most immediate ways that we can address this to apply that affordability rate, because that was income-based, if you received assistance with that temporary program, you are automatically eligible. Other utility providers in the space, Ameren, Spire, MSD, they have their own programs as well. We're building in reciprocity. If you have applied for and been, made eligible for those programs and can show the letter of approval there, we are taking that as reciprocity to provide that affordability rate for those folks as well. And as we build the program out to come up with our own income metrics, our own age metrics that align, again, in partnership with some of the consumer advocacy groups that do this work, the expertise that they have, we have leaned into to build something that is addressing the challenge most effectively, most directly. And I do think this is one of the biggest strengths of owning this public utility. The power in that is that we do not have our investors or outside entities to pay back first. It is our citizens that we are most concerned about. It is maintaining essential water service. The repayment plans certainly have very generous terms. We do not charge interest on those repayment plans. The goal is to get people's water service turned back on, or to stay active, to communicate with them when they're facing these challenges. And now we have potentially a permanent program, if this board bill passes and this rate becomes effective, to offer a 50% subsidy. Again, that'll mean that after all of these increases go into effect, someone in that program will be paying less after all those increases go into effect than they are today.
After all of the increases do take effect, I know we mentioned that 18% for 6 months, another 18%, but dollars and cents wise, what are we looking at the average bill going up like?
You want to talk about
sure.
that?
So the first increase, and again, it depends on either the billing structure someone's in, if they're flat rate or metered, the components that they're billed on in their homes, but we're looking at about $7 to $9 for that first increase. And then further down the road, increases closer to maybe $3 to $4 a month.
Mayor Kipper, John Kipper has a question. The St. Louis population went down again after the latest census update. These numbers don't count the tornado. How concerned are you, and is there any effort to challenge those numbers?
Yeah, we're very concerned. Look, population loss has been an ongoing issue for many years, and the city of St. Louis, the St. Louis region, is at the top of national list at this point, and it's alarming. And I would argue that our population loss is at a crisis level, and we are looking at challenging those numbers. There are a lot of factors that go into the census numbers that disproportionately reduce numbers for cities with higher populations of vulnerable residents, higher populations of people of color, foreign-born, people that are more transient. And we know that we have higher populations than the national average in those categories, as well as vacant buildings and the demolition of those, which also plays into that. So we're looking into challenging that, and that is a work product that we'll have more on in the coming weeks.
Mayor, there were recent homeless tent encampments that were cleared out, and then, of course, we look at the thousands of people made homeless by the tornado.
Yeah.
We know you guys were active during the winter in getting extra space for the homeless. What are you doing now to try to help the homeless population of St. Louis?
Sure, and you may remember we allocated $2 million of city funds, the first time in at least my recollection that we've ever been able to do that. And we're really calling on surrounding municipalities, Elliot. As you well know, the surrounding municipalities, including where you live, are not paying their fair share to the regional issue of homelessness. And so we invite you and others to advocate where you live as well for your municipalities to help us to fund this regional crisis in homelessness.
So do you hold people like Sam Page responsible for not doing his fair share?
We are continuing to have these conversations at East West Gateway and across regional leadership. It's imperative. Look, we hold the region's homelessness here in the city of St. Louis, and it's incredibly expensive to be able to support the members of the unhoused community, and it's important that we do so. And you're right, we stepped up in unprecedented ways this last winter, and we want to continue to do that, but we cannot continue to shoulder that burden alone. Yes?
You mentioned the city's shrinking population. How much does that factor in when you consider things like raising water rates?
The shrinking population is a huge component. When we lose taxpayers, when we lose water users, these are huge impacts. It makes it exceptionally difficult to support the unhoused and making sure that we are doing our part to support the most vulnerable when we carry the most vulnerable. And losing population, losing taxpayers, ratepayers across the board makes that work more vulnerable. I'll take one more question and then we've got
a hearing the other day on the potential of the RAM settlement money being a factor in how much the police department is owed.
Say that first part again, Sean.
The hearing the other day about whether or not
on the mandamus case?
Yeah, the Board of Police Commissioner.
Yes.
If this lawsuit doesn't go the city's way and the judge orders you have to use their $250 million budget, how quickly can the city turn around with the rest of their budgets to adjust for that?
Look, the case that the Board of Police Commissioners filed against the city of St. Louis 2 weeks ago, the writ of mandamus suit, is ridiculous. And if they, for some ludicrous reason, were to be successful, it would be catastrophic to the city. If we had to come up with $68 million by June 30th to fund the police department, it would be extremely difficult. We would do what we could to make that, particularly if the judge decided that's the way the city has to go. But let me be clear, we believe strongly that we will be successful in that. The case is asking for the city to come up with $67 million for this fiscal year. These are funds that the police board never asked for. It's a political stunt, in my view, by the attorney for the police board, and it's an unfortunate one that is pitting the city against the police department that I, as mayor, and our city strongly supports and absolutely needs for public safety. This is an absolutely devastating turn of events when we've got an attorney essentially running the police board and doing so in a way that doesn't represent the best interest of the city and isn't even on strong legal footing. And so we believe strongly in our case. Our attorneys have been doing a spectacular, phenomenal job working well over the weekend, producing some phenomenal expert witnesses to make sure that the judge is well aware what revenue is. Their contention that the RAM settlement funds and our reserve funds are revenue from this fiscal year is it's so far from reality, it's hard to respond to it. Those funds came in years before. You know, we're not going to entertain the idea that those funds constitute general revenue from this fiscal year.
Do you think it was a mistake for you to sue the police department first?
Elliot, I did say that was the last question. I'm sorry. We have